What is going on, YouTube?
Greetings, O Earthlings.
I'm Travis.
And I'm John.
And we are here with our first interview at It's a Work with none other than the Grand Champion of Chikara, Juan Francisco de Coronado. It's a pleasure to have you here, Juan.
The pleasure is all yours.
I think I said that.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you here, Mr. Cappuccino.
Okay, I'm sorry if we had offended you. We didn't mean anything by it. I know that you have Ecuadorian culture, Ecuadorian blood flowing through your veins. I don't want to, by any means, step on your culture, do any harm. I think we're going to get through this just fine. Can we agree to put any differences we may have here? You seem a little frustrated. I don't want that to come off as the same way from us. Can we put this little bit of hostility aside and get through an interview?
Perhaps we can move forward with this interview.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and do that. So we're going to go ahead and interview Juan Francisco de Coronado. Now, I want to start this by letting you know that last night we were watching 205 Live.
Yeah.
And we happened to see a gentleman who bared a pretty striking resemblance to you by the name of Christopher Guy. Can you tell us anything about Mr. Guy?
Well, Mr. Guy has a striking resemblance, although slightly more Caucasian than I. Christopher Guy was very successful in 205 Live last night, and you saw as well a striking resemblance because how could you miss such a sharp, handsome-looking man such as myself?
I can agree to some of those statements. I have some trouble finding that he was successful last night as he lost to TJ Perkins on 205 Live.
Yes, he may have lost the match, but he has won another successful notch on his belt of being a world sports entertainer.
I think that is actually a pretty fair assessment.
Yeah, he's won in the game of life. Weren't you watching last night?
Yeah, I watched, but
Did you not see?
I saw his shoulders on the floor.
You saw a beautiful drop kick is what you saw.
Mr. Corn Tornado's right.
Mr. Corn Tornado. De Coronado.
That's what I said.
We're going to get this right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you know, it's funny that we had seen Christopher Guy, and you seem to be a little familiar with him. I think he made an appearance back in December on SmackDown when he teamed up with Colin Delaney to face the Bludgeon Brothers. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that man was named Joe Monroe. Screamin' Joe Monroe, to be exact.
Joe Monroe.
Yes. Similar characteristic traits to Christopher Guy and myself. Joe Monroe teamed up with Colin Delaney to face the Bludgeon Brothers, and Joe Monroe was not pinned to the mat.
That is true. Joe Monroe was not.
That's true. Colin Delaney was the one who was pinned.
He was. I got to admit, though, Joe Monroe definitely left a mark in the WWE that night.
Right.
He
Quite
captured
the
my
impression.
imagination. Sorry to interrupt. I apologize.
You are sorry.
Yes, I
you
am.
are.
If you're not now, you will be. So this is actually pretty interesting. So I'm not sure how I want to phrase this question, but how has Christopher Monroe, can I combine the two? Christopher Monroe.
That's a fair assessment.
How is Christopher Monroe de Coronado? Is that too much? Christopher Monroe. How has Christopher Monroe's time with WWE been? You seem pretty close with him.
Yes, I can tell you with certainty that there's a good working relationship. And in fact, there may not be many more times you won't see a Christopher or a Joe appearing at WWE live events.
Well, that sounds promising.
Very interesting news indeed.
It's interesting to hear from Juan Francisco de Coronado on these things because certainly these are two other individuals.
Certainly.
Okay, I'm making sure we have this straight.
Absolutely.
I don't want to get anything crossed here, but we may be seeing more of those two gentlemen.
Or maybe many more with striking resemblance.
That could be interesting.
Your father may have been a busy man.
Yes, we call him the Ecuadorian jackhammer.
That's fitting considering the other jackhammers that have been around WWE. Anyway, moving on now, I want to talk a little bit about your time with Chikara Pro and how that's been going. And I know that you've had quite the brigade of opponents over your time, and you've even overseas you've main evented the Equidome. But here in the United States, or as you like to say, the United Stations, is that correct?
That's the proper term.
Okay. Here in the United Stations, you've faced so many people, but I want to talk specifically about Zack Sabre Jr.
Yes.
And what a hell of an athlete. And what was it like working with Zack Sabre Jr.?
Well, much like the pleasure is all yours, the pleasure was truly his. But I would be remorsed if I didn't appreciate what that match brought to me. That match specifically is one of my favorites, and the type of match that it was, being very technically sound from beginning to end, is the kind of match that I strive for. Those are the kinds of matches that will sell out the Equidome coming many, many years on, and many, many years going forward, including here in the United States. Matches like the ones I had with Zack Sabre Jr. are ones that will be remembered. This match happened well over 2 years ago, and today people still talk about it as being one of the best matches they have ever seen in their lives.
It was quite a fantastic match. And I must say that the two of you are both great technical wrestlers, and you are a phenomenal, perhaps even an underrated technical wrestler on the independent circuit today.
Here in the United States, a lot of people like to use the term underrated. But in Ecuador, I am properly established. There are statues erected in my name.
Statues, Travis.
I am not underrated.
I think we need one of those statues.
I'm not saying we don't. I'm simply saying here, the way that we have certain dominant companies when it comes to sports entertainment and professional wrestling, and there are gentlemen who we've just spoken of who bear a striking resemblance to you, who have made it to some of these companies, but Juan Francisco de Coronado has not. And I'm just saying that in terms of that, you are underrated, as in terms that you should be there. You're just not yet.
Travis, I think you need to slow down. I think you're going to offend Mr. DiCaprio. And as we were saying...
De Coronado.
That's what I said. So, I want to ask you, being that you are such an amazing technical wrestler, you've managed to hold on to the Chikara Grand Championship for quite some time now. Could you tell us a little bit about your time as Grand Champion?
Well, I'd love to. You see, I became Grand Champion of Chikara back on April 1st of 2017, which means I've been champion for well over 365 days, a full calendar year, you would call it here in the United States. During my time as Grand Champion, I have successfully defended, one after the other, all of the great Chikara roster members they have to offer. They have all came to me with 3 points, 3 consecutive wins. That's how you get a championship match in Chikara. They have all won their matches, but they all failed to get the job done because I am the greatest Grand Champion Chikara has ever seen. Greater than Eddie Kingston, greater than Princess Kimberly, greater than Ultramantis Black, Icarus, and Hollow Wicked.
Now, I don't want to interrupt, but
But you're going to.
I am, and I do send my apologies. I am so sorry. But you
So
do have
unprofessional.
you do have to defend that Grand Championship this Saturday, correct?
This Saturday, I will go one-on-one with Michael Quackenbush. He is perhaps my greatest challenge to date. He has come out of retirement, gotten 3 points, and is now ready to challenge for my Grand Championship. However, if history will show you anything, it's that I will successfully defend my championship and continue my reign as Chikara Grand Champion.
Now that we understand your opponent for this weekend, and we understand a little bit about the other phenomenal champions that have raced Chikara, do you have any memorable matches with any of them? What is your most memorable match with the Chikara opponent?
Well, perhaps my most memorable defense as Grand Champion was against Fire Ant in Chicago. That match was actually nominated as the match of the year for Chikara of 2017. That match was pretty important to me as it came this close to changing hands. But that just means I am that much better than Fire Ant. One of the longest tenured roster members we have. One that has been putting in all of the work, even a trainer at the Wrestle Factory. He knows what it takes, but he just doesn't have what it takes.
That's pretty insightful. I mean, there's a pretty extensive history with the ant colony there in general, but Fire Ant has been in Chikara for quite some time. It's interesting to see how you've evolved and molded in to better some of these real Chikara veterans. I guess we'll have to see what happens on Saturday with Mike Quackenbush, who's come out of retirement now, you said, for this. That should be pretty interesting. But I do have another question. Maybe I'd let John handle this one. John, would you like to
Yeah, absolutely.
handle the following question?
Juan, we'd like to know... it's okay if I call you Juan, right?
I suppose it's better than what you've been calling me.
Okay, Juan, we'd like to know who would you most like to face in all of professional wrestling?
Well, that's fairly easy. Eliminating the Joe Monroes and Christopher Guys of the world, although that would be an instant classic. I would have to say the equivalent of selling out the Equidome in Ecuador would be your equivalent here of selling out Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
It would be very interesting to one day see Juan Francisco de Coronado headlining Madison Square Garden against John Cena. Juan on John. I believe you would have the recipe for a real masterpiece here.
I think that could be a very money-making, profitable business venture. However, no disrespect meant, but it seems that the way John Cena's career is going, it's starting to wind down a bit.
And now is the time to strike.
He's right, Travis. Juan could handily defeat John Cena in a Juan on John match, as he stated.
I suppose that's true. It's a good point. But striking...
It's the only point.
Is striking simply that easy?
Have you seen my matches?
Yes. Yes, I suppose.
Have you seen his drop kick?
I've seen his drop kick. I've seen his Coronado clutch. His Coronado clutch is a very dangerous move. I do not want... I've seen his German suplex.
And if you haven't, you should.
You should. You really should. Now that I think about it, we did have to reschedule this interview with you, Juan, and as I recall, when you had called us to notify us of your rescheduling, you didn't call us necessarily, you had one of your servants or some form of assistant phone us to let us know that there was an emergency at the Ecuadorian embassy. The Ecuadorian embassy. I'm so sorry. And I just want to make sure that everything is okay back home.
Yes, everything is fine. I had some matters to attend to. The Prime Minister of Ecuador needed my personal assistance and I had to make sure
That's fancy.
that I was there. Yes, I'm a big deal in Ecuador, right?
You're a big deal here, too.
Of course. Although most United Staters don't appreciate that.
One day they may.
They
I hope
will.
they will.
They will, definitely.
We here at It's a Work really do appreciate you, and we're glad again to have you, and thank you again for doing this.
Your inaugural guest here.
You are, and we are privileged and truly humbled by the experience to be graced with the presence of Juan Francisco de Coronado. Now I have to ask, what is your favorite food, Juan?
My favorite food is an Ecuadorian delicacy known as peeled prunes. Yes,
Peeled.
it's exactly what you think it looks like. Peeled prunes, an Ecuadorian delicacy.
We should get some peeled prunes on the show.
Yes.
That's something for
The
our...
next
our
time I
prune
come
basket,
here, I
yeah.
need a bowl of peeled prunes.
Why didn't you talk to his people before he got here to make sure we had peeled
I
prunes?
talked to his people, but nobody mentioned peeled prunes.
I'm pretty sure they told you about the peeled prunes. Don't they told you about the peeled prunes? They told you
Next time, I need peeled prunes.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. We will get you a fresh bowl of the ripest... Are they ripe peeled prunes?
Yes.
The ripest peeled prunes we can find.
Absolutely.
Now that we know your favorite food, I think it's time we move on back to wrestling a
Yeah.
little bit.
Allow me to take this one if you,
Absolutely.
if you will.
Absolutely.
Mr. De Coronado, is it? Yes, De Coronado. Wow. Juan claps for me. Mr. De Coronado, who is your favorite WWE foreign wrestler of all time?
Well, foreign wrestler of all time, I would have to go with the Iron Sheik. Simply because he has the attitude of that of an Ecuadorian. He only cares about himself. He needs to only get into the ring, do his job, and move on out. I respect that about the Sheik.
I can definitely understand that, but are you saying that you don't care about anyone but yourself? How about all the Ecuadorian children that you've helped over the years?
The Ecuadorian children I've helped over the years are grateful for me. They are grateful that I am in their lives and stand as a father figure for all. The people here of the United States should follow that example of the people in Ecuador. You too need to follow the example of the people in Ecuador.
Well, we will certainly do our best after this interview. I mean, we're learning a lot, and we would like to respect.
And apply going forward.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, definitely.
If there's anything that we can do, just please let us know, or have one of your people contact us and let us know of changes that can be made here at It's a Work. We'd be happy to oblige.
Yes. Now, moving on, Juan, you have been the grand champion for quite some time now, and I imagine you're going to continue being the grand champion for
Ever.
ever. Yes, of course, ever. And in order to remain the Chikara grand champion, you're going to have to take out a lot of opponents. Who do you intend on eradicating on your quest to become the greatest grand champion of all time?
Well, as I stated earlier, I already am the greatest grand champion of all time. I have out-defended Eddie Kingston. I have outlasted Princess Kimberly. And the reigns of Hollow Wicked and Icarus combined do not match the integrity of my match defenses. So, in terms of being the greatest champion of all time, I'm already there. As far as who will be eradicated next, it's Michael Quackenbush this Saturday at the Wrestle Factory. And anyone else who steps forward after him, it'll be a clear choice for me to know that I've already won every match. This match is my biggest match going forward. And anything after that is just a walk.
Now, I do have a question, and it's regarding to your branding, and I can see it here on your shirt. In your opinion, Juan, who is the best bow tie manufacturer around?
Well, nowhere near here. That's for certain. In the United States, the quality of bow ties here is very poor.
Is it?
The richest, high quality bow tie you will ever find on this planet, whether you believe it's flat or round, is in Ecuador. The great children of the orphanage in Ecuador have been given jobs to produce the highest quality bow ties, which is where I get all of my material from to produce my handcrafted bow ties.
You're telling me, well, the Earth is round, first, but you're telling me that you have Ecuadorian children manufacture your bow ties.
Hey, you should be applauding this man. He gave them jobs.
The children of the orphanage need direction. They need discipline. I am allowing them to go down a path of righteousness and discipline, and they may get paid at the end of the day.
So, now that we've talked a little bit about your favorite foods and your favorite opponents and matches in wrestling, can you tell us a little bit about your training in wrestling? Who trained you? Where you trained? A little bit about Juan Francisco de Coronado's training in wrestling.
Yes. Juan Francisco de Coronado has been in wrestling now for 10 years. We've reached the double-digit mark.
That's a long time.
Right, and in my time here in 10 years, I've accomplished a lot. But in order to accomplish a lot, I had to have great discipline. Like my father and his father before him, the generations of the De Coronado legacy have been passed down to me. In my time in Ecuador, I've learned all of the greatest tricks, all of the greatest holds on becoming the greatest professional wrestler that I could be. I have brought my talents here to the United States simply to prove that Ecuador is the greatest of all the world. And in my time here, I have proven this by becoming Grand Champion of Chikara, by making a debut at Ring of Honor, by going and seeing Christopher Guy and Joe Monroe in the WWE. My accomplishments is a very healthy list, and it is all due to the great training regimen back home in Ecuador.
Beautiful.
That is.
During your training, you've mentioned that you learned a lot of holds, and I think I may know the answer to this, but what is your favorite wrestling hold?
Well, I'd be happy to show you if you'd like.
You can show us.
Don't do it.
No?
No.
No. If you just talk about it, that would be okay.
As I
Yes, sir.
mentioned earlier, the De Coronado legacy has been passed down generation after generation, and one hold that we have held true to is the Coronado clutch. When I put on the Coronado clutch, you are not getting up. When I put on the Coronado clutch, you will either tap out or you will pass out. There is no in between. There is no escape. This hold is the finishing hold. This Coronado clutch, there is no greater hold in professional wrestling. That is my favorite hold.
Fantastic. Maybe he'll teach me how to do it after this interview, and I can put it on you. And
I think maybe would you be interested in applying the move to John?
It
here?
would be my pleasure.
Wonderful. We'll have to set that up so you can learn the move properly after this interview. I think that's great.
I don't think that's necessary.
I think it is. Now, with all this said and all that you have done in the past and the championships and the accolades that you hold, Juan, I must ask, what does the future hold for Juan Francisco de Coronado?
Well, the future looks bright. I can tell you with certainty that my time here in the United States has not gone unnoticed. The powers that be know that I am here, and the powers that be know that it's only a matter of time before I go where I need to go. The future for Juan Francisco de Coronado contains a lot of money and a lot of gold. But first and foremost, this Saturday, I must defend my Grand Championship against one Michael Quackenbush. And after that, it's straight to the top.
I have to say, I truly do believe in you, Juan. I think you have what it takes to be a success here in the United States. Not that you have not already been a success, but to reach greater heights than you have already. Would you not agree with me, John?
Straight to the top.
Straight to the top. I think that is great. Juan, I would like to thank you for having me here. Well, I'd like to thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Well, he didn't have us. We had him. Thank you for joining us.
I loved you in Inception, by the way.
De Coronado. Not DiCaprio. De Coronado. That's all the time we have here with Juan Francisco de Coronado. I think it's best we go before we all end up as a victim of the Coronado clutch, because I have a family to get home to, and I'd like to survive the rest of the day. Thanks again for joining us, Juan. I'm Travis with It's a Work.
I'm John.
We'll see you next time.